Tonight, I want to share a message inspired by one of Napoleon Hill's deepest and most overlooked teachings, an idea powerful enough to reshape the direction of your life if you embrace it fully. Act as if God is within you. Hill wasn't speaking about religion in the traditional sense. He was pointing to the incredible, unstoppable, creative force that exists inside every human being. He believed that each of us carries a spark of the infinite, a connection to something greater, something intelligent, something capable of guiding us toward our highest potential when we learn to trust it. To act as if God is within you is to recognize that you are not weak, not alone, not powerless, and not trapped by your circumstances. It means you are aligned with something far stronger than fear, doubt, and limitation. It means you move through life with the confidence of someone who knows they are supported by a force far deeper than the physical world. When you think, speak, and behave as if that divine intelligence is guiding your thoughts, your decisions begin to shift, your standards rise, your courage increases, your mindset expands. You stop waiting for life to change and begin creating change through your inner certainty. Napoleon Hill believed that this inner presence, the God mind, the infinite intelligence, answers our thoughts, our intentions, and our faith. When you trust it, you begin to notice synchronicities. New opportunities appear. Solutions come more easily. You feel guided, strengthened, and inspired from within. Your task is not to become worthy of this inner presence. You already are. Your task is simply to live as though it is real, as though it is active, as though it is always with you. Because when you do, your creativity increases, your fear dissolves, and your vision expands far beyond the limits of ordinary thinking. Tonight, reflect on this one truth. If you acted every day as if God were within you, how would you think? Speak live and decide. What dreams would you pursue? What fears would you release? This is the shift that can transform your entire life. Napoleon Hill taught that every human being carries within them a spark of something infinitely greater than their physical identity, something that can guide, empower, and elevate them far beyond what they believe is possible. This idea is central to his philosophy, that there exists an infinite intelligence, a divine source of wisdom and creative energy, and that this power does not exist somewhere outside of you. It flows through you. To act as if God is within you is to recognize that you are never disconnected from that source, never without guidance, and never lacking the strength you need to rise above your challenges. This inner power is not something you earn or achieve. It is inherent. You were born with it, and nothing can take it away. But most people go through their entire lives unaware of it, behaving as if they are limited, weak, and alone. Hill believed that the greatest tragedy is not the mistakes we make or the obstacles we face. It is our failure to recognize the divine potential sleeping inside us. When you forget that a higher source is guiding your intuition, your courage, and your creativity, you shrink your own possibilities. But when you acknowledge it, even quietly within yourself, something profound begins to shift in your life. When you act as if God is within you, your thoughts elevate. You stop thinking small, doubting yourself, or imagining worst-case scenarios. Instead, you begin tapping into ideas, insights, solutions, and inspirations that feel as though they come from a higher place. This is exactly what Hill meant when he said that ideas are the beginning points of all fortunes. He understood that when your mind is aligned with a higher source, you begin receiving ideas that can change your life, your finances, your relationships, and your future. This inner power also strengthens your emotional resilience. When you believe that a higher presence is guiding your path, fear loses its grip. You stop feeling overwhelmed by problems because you trust that answers will come. You stop hesitating because you feel supported. You stop doubting your worth because you recognize that something sacred lives within you. This is not arrogance. It is alignment. It is the understanding that you are part of something much larger than yourself, and that this connection gives you strength in moments when your human confidence wavers. Hill often said that the greatest source of power is the ability to control your own mind. But controlling your mind becomes far easier when you believe that you are not doing it alone. When you act as if God is within you, you think more clearly, speak more intentionally, and move through life with a sense of inner direction. You begin to expect progress rather than fear failure. You begin to trust the quiet, intuitive nudges that guide you toward the right people, the right opportunities, and the right decisions. This divine force within you is not loud. It does not shout. It whispers through intuition, through moments of clarity, through sudden insights, through the quiet strength that appears when you need it most. Acting as if God is within you means listening to those whispers, trusting those nudges, and embracing the truth that the power you seek is already alive within your own consciousness. When Napoleon Hill spoke of acting as if God is within you, he was pointing to a profound psychological and spiritual truth. When you believe that a divine intelligence lives inside you, your behavior naturally rises to reflect that belief. You begin to carry yourself differently. You speak with more intention. You make decisions with greater clarity. You hold yourself to a higher standard, not because someone is watching, not because you fear consequences, but because you feel a responsibility to the greatness that lives within you. This shift in behavior is not forced, it happens organically. When you see yourself as connected to the divine, you stop viewing your actions as meaningless or insignificant. Every choice becomes an expression of who you believe you are. If you believe you are guided by a higher power, you start acting like a person of purpose. You are less likely to entertain negativity, laziness, or self-doubt because those patterns feel misaligned with the presence you are honoring within you. Acting from divinity also changes your relationship with discipline. Discipline stops being a burden and becomes an honor. You're no longer disciplining yourself simply to achieve goals. You're doing it because you respect the divine potential within you. You treat your body differently. You treat your time differently. You treat your mind differently. You begin to understand that everything you do either strengthens or weakens your alignment with the higher force guiding your life. Your words transform as well. You become more conscious of what you say because you understand the creative power of speech. Hill taught that words are the carriers of thought, and thought is the instrument through which infinite intelligence moves. If God is within you, then your words carry the energy of creation, intention, and influence. You begin speaking with clarity instead of confusion, with confidence instead of hesitation, with truth instead of fear. You speak life into your goals, encouragement into your challenges, and positivity into your future. Your behavior toward others also elevates. When you recognize the divine within yourself, it becomes easier to see that same divine spark in other people. Compassion increases. Patience expands. Anger becomes less appealing. Pettiness becomes beneath you. You no longer need to prove yourself because you are already rooted in a deeper sense of worth. You become more authentic, more courageous, and more generous, not because you are trying to be a good person, but because it feels natural to act from a place of inner divinity. Acting from divinity also influences your choices. You stop making decisions out of fear, scarcity, or insecurity. Instead, you make decisions that align with your highest potential. You choose opportunities that help you grow. You walk away from environments that drain your energy. You set boundaries with confidence. You take steps that once felt impossible because you trust that you are supported by a force far greater than your present circumstances. This elevated behavior becomes a new identity. You start seeing yourself as someone capable, worthy, guided, and strong. You begin living with purpose instead of drifting through life. You show up with intention instead of reacting out of habit. You understand that every action is a reflection of the divine intelligence within you. And because of that awareness, you naturally rise into a higher version of yourself. Napoleon Hill repeatedly emphasized that faith is the activating force that awakens the inner intelligence, or the God mind, within each person. He taught that faith is not merely belief. It is an emotional state, a psychological vibration, a mental frequency that aligns your mind with higher wisdom. When you act with faith, speak with faith, and make decisions with faith, you unlock a deeper level of intuition, creativity, and problem-solving ability that cannot be accessed in states of fear or doubt. Faith is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. It is the force that transforms an idea into a result, a desire into an achievement, a dream into a reality. Without faith, your inner intelligence remains dormant, like a powerful engine left idle. With faith, that engine roars to life. Hill explained that infinite intelligence responds to belief, not hesitation, to conviction, not fear, to certainty, not indecision. This is why acting as if God is within you becomes so powerful, because that very act cultivates faith. When you truly believe you are guided by a higher presence, doubt begins to dissolve. You no longer approach your goals with the mindset of, I hope this works. Instead, you approach them with the mindset of, I trust the process, and I trust the guidance within me. This shift is subtle but transformative. Faith does not eliminate challenges, but it strengthens your ability to rise above them. It keeps you anchored when circumstances seem uncertain. It gives you the courage to move forward even when the next step is not fully visible. Faith also sharpens your intuition. Hill described intuition as the whisper of infinite intelligence, a whisper that grows louder when the mind is free from fear. When you activate faith, you quiet the mental noise that blocks inspiration. Answers begin to come more easily. Ideas appear when you need them most. You start to sense the right direction, the right decisions, the right opportunities. This is not luck, it is alignment. It is your inner intelligence responding to the clarity and confidence that faith provides. Another remarkable effect of faith is its ability to increase creativity. When you believe that a higher wisdom is flowing through you, your mind opens to possibilities that previously seemed unreachable. You no longer limit yourself to what you've already seen or experienced. You begin to imagine new paths, new solutions, new ways of thinking. Faith frees your mind from the prison of past failures and expands your ability to envision a greater future. Faith also strengthens emotional resilience. When fear tries to take control, faith acts as a stabilizing force. It reminds you that you are not alone, not unsupported, and not without inner resources. You stop reacting to life from a place of panic and instead respond from a place of calm, grounded knowing. This emotional strength allows you to persist when others give up, endure when others collapse, and stay focused when others become discouraged. Most importantly, faith connects you to your true potential. It activates the part of you that is confident, creative, courageous, and guided. It awakens the divine intelligence that exists within you, waiting to be used. Hill taught that once faith becomes a habit, the impossible begins to look possible, the difficult becomes manageable, and the future becomes something you shape with intention rather than fear. One of Napoleon Hill's most profound teachings is that fear is nothing more than a state of mind, a state that can be changed the moment you shift your perception of yourself. When you act as if God is within you, when you recognize that a divine force is guiding your thoughts and strengthening your spirit, fear begins to lose its power over you. It no longer feels like an uncontrollable force. It becomes something small, something manageable, something that cannot dominate your decisions unless you allow it to. Fear thrives on the belief that you are powerless. It grows in the absence of self-trust. It takes root when you feel alone, unsupported, or disconnected from something greater than yourself. But when you remember that a higher presence lives within you, that your intuition is not random, that your courage is not accidental, that your inner voice is not simply imagination, you begin to approach life from a completely different perspective. The moment you acknowledge that you are connected to something divine, something intelligent, something infinitely wise, fear begins to crumble. This is because fear cannot coexist with faith. The two are opposing vibrations. Fear constricts the mind, faith expands it. Fear closes doors, faith opens them. Fear paralyzes, faith energizes. When you recognize your inner divinity, your inner experience shifts from contraction to expansion. You stop seeing obstacles as threats and begin seeing them as opportunities for growth. You stop exaggerating potential failures and start trusting your inner ability to rise above them. Fear becomes much smaller when you stop identifying with your limitations. When you remind yourself that the same intelligence that shapes the universe also flows through your consciousness, it becomes harder to view yourself as weak or incapable. You start to shift from a mindset of, what if I can't? To, what if this is guiding me toward something greater? This is not denial. It is alignment. It is the understanding that challenges are not punishments. They are invitations to tap deeper into your inner strength. Hill taught that fear is most powerful when the mind is empty, empty of purpose, empty of faith, empty of direction. But the moment you fill your mind with the awareness of your divine connection, fear loses its ability to take root. You begin to trust the timing of your life. You begin to trust the inner nudges that push you toward change. You begin to trust your ability to handle difficulties with grace and clarity. Fear no longer feels like an enemy, but rather a sign pointing to the areas where you are ready to grow. Recognizing your inner divinity also gives you access to courage, not the loud, aggressive kind, but the calm and steady courage that comes from knowing you are not walking your path alone. It is a courage that whispers, "Keep going," even when the road becomes uncertain. It is a courage that strengthens your voice when doubt tries to silence it. It is a courage that rises from within, fueled by the belief that you are guided by a power far greater than any challenge you will ever face. The more you lean into this inner divinity, the smaller fear becomes. What once felt overwhelming begins to feel possible. What once seemed impossible begins to feel inevitable. Fear shrinks not because the world becomes easier, but because you become stronger, more aligned, more aware, more connected to the divine presence that has always been within you. Napoleon Hill taught that the greatest transformation a person can experience is the shift from being a reactor to becoming a creator of their own life. Most people move through life responding to circumstances, reacting to problems, and adjusting themselves to external conditions they believe they cannot control. But when you act as if God is within you, when you recognize that a divine intelligence flows through your mind, you stop living from the outside in. Instead, you begin to live from the inside out. Your thoughts shape your environment, your beliefs direct your choices, and your inner certainty becomes stronger than the noise of the world. To become a creator is to understand that you are not defined by external events. You are defined by the meaning you assign to them and the actions you take afterward. A reactive mind blames circumstances, waits for permission, fears uncertainty, and always looks outward for answers. But a creative mind looks inward. A creative mind asks, "What can I build with this? How can I shape this into something useful? What is this challenge trying to draw out of me?" When you act as if God is within you, these questions become your natural way of thinking. You begin to trust that every moment carries a hidden opportunity, a lesson, or a doorway to something greater. This mindset shift is not about ignoring reality. It's about realizing that you have the power to influence it. Hill believed that every person has the ability to transmute their thoughts into physical results. This is the essence of being a creator, understanding that your inner world is the blueprint for your outer world. When your thoughts are rooted in fear, scarcity, or doubt, your life reflects those vibrations. But when your thoughts are rooted in faith, clarity, and divine alignment, your life begins to reflect that higher energy. You stop repeating the same patterns and start designing new futures. As a creator, you take responsibility for your emotional state. You no longer allow people or circumstances to dictate how you feel. Instead, you anchor yourself in the knowing that your inner divinity provides stability, strength, and guidance. When frustrations arise, you don't collapse. You pause, reflect, and respond with intention. You choose your reactions instead of being controlled by them. This emotional mastery becomes one of your greatest strengths. Creators also make bold decisions. They are willing to take steps without needing the entire path to be visible. They understand that clarity often comes after action, not before. Acting as if God is within you means trusting that each step will reveal the next. It means believing that your intuition, strengthened by faith, will guide you to the right opportunities, people, and solutions. You stop waiting for perfect conditions and start creating them. Another powerful aspect of becoming a creator is your relationship with time. Reactive individuals feel rushed, overwhelmed, and pressured because they are constantly responding to what the world throws at them. Creative individuals feel centered. They move with purpose, not panic. They design their days. They set intentions. They choose their priorities based on vision, not fear. Acting as if God is within you gives you a higher sense of inner order, a knowing that every moment has meaning and purpose. As you embrace this truth more fully, life begins to feel less chaotic. You no longer feel pushed around by circumstances. Instead, you feel guided by your intuition, your faith, your vision, and the divine intelligence within you. You create from a place of alignment, clarity, and inner strength, becoming the architect of your destiny rather than a passive observer of your circumstances. When Napoleon Hill spoke about living as if God is within you, he wasn't asking you to adopt a belief. He was inviting you to adopt an awareness. This awareness becomes a lens through which you see yourself, others, and the world. It transforms ordinary moments into meaningful steps and turns everyday decisions into expressions of purpose. When you live with this awareness, your life naturally begins to expand, not because circumstances change overnight, but because you expand first. Your thinking stretches, your vision grows, your energy increases, your expectations rise, and life responds to that expansion. Living with divine awareness means you stop viewing yourself as limited to your human identity, your past, or your circumstances. You begin to see yourself as someone connected to a higher intelligence that flows through your thoughts, your intuition, and your creative impulses. You start to understand that you are not merely navigating life, you are guided through it. This realization softens the weight of uncertainty. It removes the heaviness of trying to control everything. It replaces anxiety with trust and replaces confusion with inner clarity. One of the most powerful effects of this awareness is the way it changes your vision of what is possible. People who believe they are alone in their journey often think small. They hesitate to dream boldly because they fear disappointment. They avoid taking risks because they believe failure will destroy them. But when you recognize that a divine force lives within you, your vision expands. You begin to allow bigger dreams into your imagination because you sense that you are supported. You no longer ask, "What if it doesn't work?" You begin to ask, "What if this is exactly what I'm being guided to create?" This shift removes invisible ceilings that once limited your potential. Living with divine awareness also changes the way you handle challenges. Instead of seeing them as setbacks, you begin to view them as guidance. You start asking higher questions. What is this teaching me? What part of me is this situation trying to strengthen? What is the opportunity hidden inside this difficulty? This mindset turns obstacles into stepping stones and keeps you aligned with growth even during painful experiences. You begin to move through life with a calm, steady confidence because you trust that something greater is orchestrating your path. Another profound expansion occurs in your relationships. When you live with divine awareness, you see the divine in others as well. This makes you more compassionate, more patient, and more understanding. You stop taking things personally because you recognize that most human behavior is rooted in fear or pain, not malice. You begin to treat people with greater kindness, not because you are trying to be moral, but because you are aligned with a higher consciousness that naturally expresses love. This awareness also heightens your creativity. He'll believe that infinite intelligence speaks through inspired ideas, the kind that arrive unexpectedly, often in quiet moments. When you live as if God is within you, you create space for these ideas to emerge. You no longer dismiss them as random thoughts. You recognize them as guidance. You follow them. And life expands because you are acting from inspiration instead of anxiety. Finally, living with divine awareness transforms your inner state. You feel more grounded, more connected, and more alive. You wake up with a sense of meaning that cannot be created by external achievements alone. You realize that every moment is part of a bigger journey, a journey guided by the divine intelligence within you. As you reflect on the message of acting as if God is within you, you begin to understand that this idea is not just a spiritual principle, nor is it simply a motivational concept. It is a way of living that reshapes your identity from the inside out. It influences how you think, how you act, how you respond, and how you move through the world. This mindset allows you to carry a sense of inner certainty that does not depend on circumstances, praise, approval, or validation. It gives you a quiet authority, an inner strength that radiates not through loudness, but through calm confidence. When you walk with this awareness, your actions become deliberate, your decisions more aligned, and your presence more grounded. The essence of this practice lies in remembering that you are never disconnected from the power that created you. When you act as if this divine presence is within you, your perspective shifts from fear to possibility. You stop approaching life with a mindset of scarcity and limitations. Instead, you begin to move with the understanding that you are supported by something larger than your own effort. This allows you to release the constant worry that burdens the mind. You no longer have to push, force, or struggle for every inch of progress. You can act from a place of inner assurance, trusting that what is meant for you will unfold when you align your intention with your purpose. This awareness also transforms how you handle the unknown. Most people fear uncertainty because they believe they must control every outcome. But when you act as if God is within you, uncertainty becomes less threatening. You begin to see it as a space where possibilities exist, a space where guidance can be felt, and a space where growth unfolds. You trust your intuition more deeply because you recognize that it is not merely a random feeling, but a whisper from something wiser than your analytical mind. This doesn't eliminate doubt, but it makes doubt less powerful. You still feel it, but it no longer stops you from moving forward. Another expansion occurs in the way you view your abilities. You begin to realize that your creativity, your ideas, your strengths, and your resilience are not accidental. They are expressions of the divine intelligence within you. This means you have access to insight when you need it, strength when you call for it, and clarity when you quiet your mind long enough to hear it. You no longer underestimate yourself or dismiss your potential because you understand that you are not operating alone. You are in partnership with something far greater. This awareness influences your relationships as well. You become less reactive, more compassionate, more patient, because you begin to see yourself and others as vessels of the same divine spark. Anger fades more quickly, forgiveness comes more easily, and understanding deepens. You interact with the world from a higher emotional frequency because you are connected to a higher spiritual source, and perhaps the most profound shift occurs in your sense of purpose. When you act as if God is within you, your life takes on a sense of direction that feels guided rather than forced. You start to recognize that everything has meaning, that every moment contains wisdom, and that every step is part of a larger unfolding.